Chapter 168. Shizun. Someone is messing with the body. Within the illusory scene, Xu Shuanglin's eyes widened. Many of those watching followed suit. Moran had a vague feeling that something wasn't right. He'd lived 2 lifetimes, and when he considered this conversation in the context of what he knew from the past life, some thought-provoking details emerged. He had been aware of Ye Wangshi's feelings for Nangong Liu for 2 reasons. In the past lifetime, before Ye Wangshi died, she expressed her wish to be buried with Nangong Liu. Ye Wangshi's identity as a woman had also been common knowledge before then, because Nangong Liu himself had arranged for her to marry Nangong Liu. It was clear now that Nangong Liu's father had been seeking a dual cultivation vessel for his son. But not long after the betrothal, Nangong Liu had met an unexpected end, while Ye Wangshi had lived on. Moran couldn't help wondering if Nangong Liu's death back then had been entirely coincidental. I'd say not, he thought. In the illusion, Xu Shuanglin's hands balled into fists. His smile remained, but his tone grew chilly. You want little Yezi to marry Asi? She's the best choice. How so? Xu Shuanglin laughed. You wanted to train her as the commander of the Shadow Guard, so you turned her into what she is now, neither man nor woman. Now you want to give her to Seer? Aren't you worried that Seer will scorn her? He's actually none too pleased about it. I used to see him chatting and laughing with Ye Wangshi all the time, and he's always been good to her, so I thought he would accept it. But when I told him, he was furious. He said he doesn't like Ye Wangshi at all. He was just looking out for her, because it's tough being a girl in the Shadow Guard. He refused the engagement. Xu Shuanglin was silent. But how could I allow it? He got into a huge row with me, saying I don't take his decisions seriously, that I'm arranging his life as I please. And he's been avoiding Ye Wangshi ever since. These days, he wants nothing to do with her. The more I try to bring him around, the worse his attitude. Now he even accuses me of siding with Ye Wangshi. The boy doesn't know what's good for him. Nangong Liu fumed. Is he rejecting her because he doesn't like her looks? If the previous sect leader suddenly told you to marry a woman you didn't care for, would you do it? Xu Shuanglin asked, quite sensibly. I doubt it's a question of looks. You really don't respect him at all. He's too shallow. If he's going to take a wife, he might as well pick a useful and virtuous one. If it's pretty girls he's after, nothing's stopping him from taking a concubine after his health is stable. Nangong Liu sighed. It's my fault for not. He coughed. For not recognizing Ye Wangshi's feelings for Seer earlier. If she still looked the way she used to, Seer would definitely like her. That's preposterous, said Xu Shuanglin. Seer still wouldn't accept it. Then he'd rather die? Dual cultivating with a man with an unstable spiritual core like his will be agonizing. If he married an ordinary woman, she couldn't withstand it. Nangong Liu took a deep breath. But Ye Wangshi is willing, because she loves him. She can take it. What do you mean she's willing? I've asked her. What? I've asked her. I've already talked to her about this. Nangong Liu said. She worries more for Seer's affliction than her own life. Xu Shuanglin lowered his head in silence, his thoughts inscrutable. That girl is a fool, he said after a long pause. By this point, Moran was near certain. There was no way that in the past life, Nangong Liu had simply contracted some illness and died. It was vastly more likely that Xu Shuanglin had personally put him in the grave. With Nangong Liu dead, Ye Wangshi could live. That Nangong Liu still lived in this lifetime was likely a stroke of luck in the form of Song Chutong. As a butterfly-boned beauty feast, Song Chutong was ideally suited for dual cultivation. If she were to marry Nangong Liu, his father would have no complaints. In fact, Nangong Liu probably felt like a meat pie had dropped from the heavens. He would no longer push Ye Wangxi to marry Nangong Si. And since Ye Wangxi and Nangong Si were no longer engaged, Xu Shuanglin had no reason to move against Nangong Si in the current lifetime. All this made perfect sense. Yet there was one thing that still mystified Moran. Why did Xu Shuanglin, who seemed every bit a deranged monster, care so deeply for Ye Wangxi? She was no more than his foster daughter after all. What was the sly, mercurial man so fixated on? What was he after? This memory was fairly brief and ended shortly. When the illusion lit up again, it showed a scene from many years ago. Nangong Liu was noticeably younger and thinner. He held a small object in his hand that twinkled with a jade-green light. As the onlookers peered closely at it, they realized it was the ring of the Rufeng sect leader. Once on its wearer's finger, this ring couldn't be taken off until the day the wearer left their post. If Nangong Liu was holding the ring, he hadn't yet officially become the master of Rufeng sect. An attendant entered and knelt in greeting. His robes were splattered with blood, as though he'd just stepped off the battlefield. This must be the night Nangong Liu slew his master and reclaimed Rufeng sect's ring. "Sect leader, how should we deal with Luo Fenghua's body?" Nangong Liu turned the ring in his hand. "Bury him in the hero's tomb," he replied after a moment of consideration. "Regardless of all else, we were once master and disciple. Allow him to rest in dignity." "Yes, sir." The attendant withdrew. Moran furrowed his brow. This couldn't be right. According to the previous memory, the Nangong brothers' teacher, Luo Fenghua, had been hacked to pieces by Nangong Liu. His body had been thrown into the blood pool of hell, where he'd been transmogrified into a vicious ghost. He had fallen into the infinite hells, never to reincarnate. Why was Nangong Liu saying he wanted to bury his master's intact body in the hero's tomb? Within the illusion, Nangong Liu rubbed the sect leader's glimmering ring. A strange and complicated light flashed in his eyes, containing both trepidation and longing. His throat bobbed. At last, he slowly lifted his hand. Under the soft glow of the candlelight, he solemnly slid the ring onto his thumb. He stared at his hand, examining it carefully. The corners of his mouth slowly curled, as if to herald a brilliant, delighted smile. But before the smile had spread over half his face, it froze. Nangong Liu screamed and toppled from the sect leader's throne, his body convulsing. "Sect leader! Sect leader, what's wrong?" Attendants rushed to help him, but none expected that when Nangong Liu lifted his head, his face would be bathed in blood. Countless tiny cuts had opened on his face, perfectly smooth and healthy moments ago. The bizarre wounds tore open and healed in an endless cycle, gushing blood without cease. "What's going on?" Nangong Liu cried in panicked terror. It hurts! It hurts so bad! Why is this happening? What's going on?" Footsteps sounded outside the door. A man walked into the room, outlined by moonlight, stepping onto the ice-cold brick with slender bare feet. He came before Nangong Liu, lifted the hem of his robes, and dropped to one knee. The newcomer was none other than a younger Xu Shuanglin. He leaned down and brought Nangong Liu's face closer to examine it carefully. Nangong Liu gasped for breath, his tears, snot, and blood mixing miserably. Xu Shuanglin frowned in disgust. How did this happen? I don't know. Shuanglin Qiancheng, please save me." Back then, Xu Shuanglin was still one of Nangong Liu's advisors. He didn't yet merit the title of elder. Looking over the writhing Nangong Liu, Xu Shuanglin took hold of his right hand. When he saw the ring glittering there, his expression changed. "There's a curse of 10,000 calamities on this ring." The aides gathered nearby gasped in horror. Only Nangong Liu seemed to be lost in a trance of pain, oblivious to the details of this lethal curse. He raised his tear-streaked face in confusion. Glistening snot leaked from his nose, mingling with blood and dripping onto the tiles. What's that?" "It's a deadly curse." Xu Shuanglin wore an ugly expression. Lu Fenghua left a terrible curse on this ring. Under its influence, the next wearer's skin will tear open under the slightest bit of moonlight, consigning them to a life worse than death, every single night. "What?" "That's not all." Xu Shuanglin ran his fingers along the ring's jade stone. He closed his eyes and sensed a rush of spiritual power from it. When there's a full moon, even if you don't take a step outside, even if you hole up and avoid the moon's light, you'll still feel you're being hacked to pieces. There's no way to escape it. He opened his eyes and glanced at Nangong Liu, who was curled on the ground, inhumanly wretched. "The only respite is death." Xu Shuanglin finished softly. Beneath the foul layer of gore, Nangong Liu's pupils contracted. He looked like an oversized rat seized by panic, or like a snake surveying a gloomy cave. He twitched almost comically and muttered, The only respite is death?" "Mm-hmm." "The curse, it can't be broken?" "It can't be broken," Xu Shuanglin responded. "At least I can't think of a way right now. Perhaps later you could." Before he could finish, Nangong Liu broke free of his grasp. Screaming and cackling, he staggered down the stairs, leaving a trail of blood to meander across the cold, bright tiles. As he wailed and shrieked, his voice grew so distorted, so shrill, that many of the onlookers had to cover their ears. "A curse? You cursed me? Lu Fenghua, you stole the sect leader's seed from my family, the Nangong clan. I left your corpse untouched when I ousted you, which was already perfectly just. You actually cursed me? How could you have the heart? How could you have the nerve? I wanted to acknowledge the favor of your teaching and bury you in the hero's tomb. Ha! The hero's tomb. But you'll have me suffer each night, my skin shredded to pieces. The only respite is death." He howled, dragging himself inch by bloody inch to the gate of the main hall. He slumped in the dark shadow of the hall's great bronze gates, his claw-like fingers twitching ominously. Without warning, he struck the ground with his hand. "The only respite is death. How could you be so heartless? Why would you be so heartless, bastard? You bastard! You ruined my life!" Sect leader. Unable to watch any longer, an attendant approached and tried to help him to his feet. But Nangong Liu bellowed and snarled. He looked utterly deranged. His face, presently a gory mess, had ever exuded a feeble and incompetent air. But now a deep hatred was etched across his features. It danced in his pupils like wildfire, consuming the last scrap of his rationality. "Let my first order as sect leader be known." Nangong Liu screamed hysterically. The attendants knelt to hear the command. "The previous sect leader, Lu Fenghua, has committed terrible crimes of utmost evil. He cannot be pardoned. I command you to take his remains and hack them into pieces. Turn him into paste." Xu Shuanglin stood calmly off to the side. He listened with his eyes lowered, his expression unreadable. As his face tore open once more, Nangong Liu could no longer bear it and collapsed into desperate sobs. But he still completed his first order as leader of Rufeng sect as he cried, grinding each word between his teeth. "Throw his body into the blood pool. Your curse will mutilate me. The only respite is death. I'll throw you into the infinite hells, never to reincarnate." The scene faded on a Nangong Liu staring with unseeing eyes, his voice hoarse as a broken chun, as he muttered, "Lu Fenghua, you bastard! You fucking bastard!" The shards of memory scattered apart once again and gathered like snowflakes. The crowd was enthralled by the drama of Rufeng sect scandals laid bare. Some, like Yivangshi and Nangong Si, had no choice but to watch. The events depicted concerned them personally, but most of the audience was simply thrilled by this glimpse into the sordid secrets of others. Envy was the world's ugliest emotion. Of those who had been invited to Nangong Si's wedding, how many had come to pay their sincere respects to Rufeng sect? Upon walking through the magnificent palace gates, treading upon the spiritual stones worth their weight in gold, seeing those 22 stately cities, how many people felt pure admiration without an ounce of jealousy? The loftier the edifice, the greater the crowd watching when it collapsed. These people would litter the ground with shells of melon seeds as they gossiped, spittle flying a yard with each word. Along every avenue and alleyway, over a cup of tea or after a meal, the suffering of others was always the headiest spice for conversation. Moran almost couldn't bear to continue watching, but his need to understand the situation's layered complexities outweighed his distaste. Xu Shuanglin's memories seemed legitimate, and they offered an explanation for everything that had happened at Jincheng Lake and Peach Blossom Springs. Yet Moran felt vaguely that a piece was missing. Some elements in this last memory didn't add up, but which ones? He knitted his brows and pondered in gloomy silence. Suddenly, he saw a strange flash of light out of the corner of his eye. With the new illusion taking shape, no one had bothered to look beyond the forest, and therefore no one had noticed. Moran stood frozen, his face drained of color. Then he yelled at the top of his lungs, "It's apocalyptic fire!" Everyone turned. Apocalyptic fire? Where? "Over there! It's over there! No, it's over there!" While everyone has been mesmerized by Xu Shuanglin's memories, Rufeng sect's 72 cities had gone up in raging scarlet flames. The fire was yet distant, and the forest was dense. The blaze was easy to miss if their attention was elsewhere. Apocalyptic fire was no natural occurrence. This type of spirit-fueled inferno could only be doused by a great rainstorm. It would otherwise be unstoppable until it consumed everything in its path, leaving behind not a single blade of grass. Thick smoke billowed. The light of the flames was as water spilled on silk, rapidly blurring at the edges. In the distance, one bright arrow after another streaked like meteors from the 72 cities. But how could they be meteors? These were the Rufeng sect disciples fleeing the conflagration on their swords. Many blanched at the sight. "What's going on?" they cried. Even more turned on their heels and started running back toward Poetry Hall, calling the names of their companions. Zhu Tengyong's face fell. Madame Wang was still in the hall, and she couldn't ride a sword. "Aran, you hang! I'll leave Mango to you guys. I gotta check up on my wifey." Moran was worried too. He nodded. "Uncle, hurry. Get Aunt out of there. We'll be here. I won't let anything happen to Shu Meng. Chua Chengyong clapped him heartily on the shoulder and promptly took off toward the flame-wreathed poetry hall. Shu Shuanglin stood unmoving as chaos broke out around him. He flashed a brilliant grin and laughed. What a sight! The monkeys scattered when the tree falls. Moran whipped around and saw Shu Shuanglin snap his fingers. Sparkling shards of memory rushed into his palm, like millions of snowflakes. The illusion dispersed, revealing surroundings that were fast becoming a sea of fire. The heavenly rift to the infinite hells yet gaped in the sky, pouring golden red lava that flowed sluggishly toward the forest. As Moran stared at Shu Shuanglin, a shiver ran down his spine. The look in this man's eyes was all wrong. It was a look Moran knew only too well. In his past life, he had seen eyes like this each time he stood before a mirror at Xixing Peak, at the deserted Wushan Palace, after Chuaning died. Eyes filled with madness and bloodlust, with self-destructive despair. The eyes of someone who wanted to take every living person to the grave with him. Do you want to destroy Rufeng's sect? At Moran's question, Shu Shuanglin's first reaction was to rub his toes together. Then he said with the sliver of a smile, So what if I do? I'm destroying my own home. Who asked for your opinion? Your own home? Shu Shuanglin stepped over the roiling lava toward Nangong Liu. He grabbed the Rufeng sect leader by the collar and hoisted him from the ground. Shu Shuanglin looked up. That's right, my own home. He forced Nangong Liu to face him, in front of that man whose last breath had been suspended by the lingchi fruit, who was living a life worse than death even now. Shu Shuanglin lifted one hand, then the other to his own neck. Starting from the base, he dug into skin and languidly, unhurriedly, ripped upward, inch by inch. There was a quiet hiss as he peeled away an exquisite human skin mask, made from the painted slough of an ancient snake demon. Beneath was a face that possessed no more the charm of youth. Nangong Liu froze in shock. Then he began trembling and cowering. He felt like he was suffocating, but still he eked out some faltering, broken words. It's you? You're not dead. You're still alive. You're still... Not dead. Still alive. After all, how could I possibly die before you did? Shu Shuanglin smiled broadly. In every respect, I am your superior, and longevity will be no exception. Even after you rot, I'll be alive and kicking. What's wrong? It's been so long since we've seen each other. Are you speechless with joy? Shu Shuanglin conjured a flame and touched it to the mask. The fire burned all the way down to his fingertips, but either he was too distracted to mind it or felt no pain. He shook out his hand and pressed a charred fingertip to the side of Nangong Liu's mouth. Shu Shuanglin cocked his head and grinned. Long time no see, esteemed sect leader. Or should I say, G